Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our council meeting on November 27th. Actually, just already have a volume issue. Here we go. Mona, is that better? Okay. Yeah, so welcome to our council meeting. Council members, can I have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's festivities? Councillor McIntosh, Councillor Andrews, all in favor? Very good. Any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest?
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Andrews.
Yes, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Taylor. I do have a conflict of interest due to my previous board membership with the DCCRC and at the advisement of the Integrity Commissioner. I'm declaring a conflict of interest with agenda items, and this is in the revised agenda. Agenda item 12.4 and also 14.1.
Very good. We will call upon you at that time, and for now you'll remain as a member of this council meeting. Okay, so there was no closed meeting tonight, which brings us into this meeting that we're in, and at this time we will begin the singing of our national anthem, and if you could please rise if you are able.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Very good. Thank you, everyone. At this time, we would like to acknowledge that the treaty lands and territory of the Williams Treaty Nations and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We also recognize that Dufferin County is a traditional territory of the Wendat and the Haudenosaunee, and is home to many Indigenous peoples today. Okay, at this time, I'd just like to make sure that everyone's aware that this meeting is being aired on public television and or streamed live and may be taped for a later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the meeting minutes. In the minutes of this meeting, any member of the public connecting via telephone is reminded to press *6 to mute and unmute. Please remain muted until the chair requests comments or questions for the public. Okay, so at this time, there's nothing to rise and report. However, I would like to point out the obvious that I am not Mayor Lisa Post. And the mayor is away tonight on a very important event, and I just wanted to call that out as to where she is. And it's exciting for all of us. She's actually at an award ceremony where she is being recognized. She is part of the award ceremony that's being handed out annually to college graduates across the province in recognition of outstanding accomplishments. And it's the Premier Award. So I know I speak for this council. We are incredibly proud of our leader, and we wish her well tonight, and so exciting. So for the rest of us, it's a sad state of affairs because you get me. So we will move on to the adoption of the previous minutes of the council meeting. And so I would ask that we approve item 10.1 and 10.2, the public meeting minutes of November 6 and the council meeting minutes of November 13. Can I have a motion for this, please? Councillor Andrews, Councillor Prendergast, all in favor? Very good. That carries unanimously. So at this time, question period, any member of the public connecting via telephone is reminded to press *6 to mute and unmute, and any member of the gallery can ask a question of council at this time if they'd like to. Yes, sir. Please state your name and address.
Hey, thank you. Matthew Smith, 38 McCarthy Street. I have a question about the transit update that was provided to council on August 14th in staff report 2023-53. The transit update had said that 2 out of the 4 buses had AC issues and that they're set to be on the road when temperatures drop. And then another bus was set to return in July. And then there was one more bus, I believe, that was even set to return in August. So just wondering if there is an update to any of those buses, because I still see these school buses going around town.
Very good. Thank you for your comment, Mr. Smith. Mr. Koslak or Mr. Deleuze, would you like to comment on this?
Sure, me. I'll comment first, and then I can pass it over to you, Mr. Deleuze, through your worship. Yeah, we had some issues with the buses. I guess they've had some mechanical breakdowns. The air conditioning was gone on some of them. We had to replace the rear end. I think last week they were all functioning, but maybe I'll turn it over to Mr. Tony Deleuze and see if he can give a more accurate update.
Mr. Deleuze?
For you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. Thank you, Mr. Koslak. Certainly, we've had some mechanical issues in the past, and the staff report of August that Mr. Smith, that Matthew Smith has referred to, is certainly one of those reports that was a snapshot in time, if you will. And certainly, we were having some issues, and the air conditioning was one of them. But that bus has since returned to service. We've had some other mechanical issues. It's been a real challenge trying to keep the buses en route. I'm happy to report that Mr. Koslak is exactly correct in that on Friday we had 2 of the 3 buses, and this morning we began the day or the week with 2 of the 3 buses, with another one scheduled to return within a few days, is what I was told. Now that few days I may be off a little bit there, but certainly we're expecting to have all 3 buses back in service very, very shortly. The AC situation that Matthew Smith has referred to is not necessarily the case today. It was a snapshot in time when that report was written and when that report went to council back in August.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Deleuze. Thank you for your question, Mr. Smith. Thank you. Does anybody else from the public gallery wish to speak at this time? Yes, sir. Mr. Ramsey, welcome.
It's Noel Ramsey at 15 Feed Street in Orangeville. My question is with regards to next week, the upcoming budget. And I know it's going to be tabled tonight, and we had an opportunity to actually look at it. I've got a whole list of questions not to ask tonight, but the question I'm asking tonight is, what is the correct procedure for submitting these types of questions prior to the budget meeting? I see that the taxes are going to go up 4.5%. It was great news to see that the policing came in at $4 million less than it was last year. And I understand that there was even a surplus for 2022 of 5.3 million. So when you're looking at $9 extra million, I was really surprised to see that the taxes are going up by 4.5%. So I've got quite a list of questions after looking through the budget, and I'm not too sure what the best vehicle to get answers. There's a lot of explanations on some of the lines that it would just take too long to go through during question period next week or this.
Yeah.
This
so what we'll do is, so first of all, tonight, and this is to council as well, really, we're going to receive the document this evening. So it'll be presented to us. There really isn't reasons at this time to go into it in terms of questions and whatnot. We'll simply receive the document, soak on it until the meetings that start next Monday and Tuesday night. And then in terms of the best way to put your questions forward, I think I'll turn that to Mr. Smith, who can share how he'd like this to.
Yeah, thank you very much. Any questions that Mr. Ramsey has or any other member of the public, they can email them in advance to the clerk's department, clerk's DEPT. That email is on our on our agenda. So it's CLERKSDEPD@orangeville.ca. And we'll keep a running tally of them. Many questions we expect will be answered through the presentations and through the process, so we won't answer them until after that presentation has occurred, so as part of the budget deliberations.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Okay.
Mr. Ramsey?
No, that's great. That's exactly what I want to find out.
Excellent.
And I just wanted to also thank the previous mayor from last year's council, plus the council members who were present on the last year's council as well. Some of them are not here, for the excellent effort that was put in to actually move over to the new police force that saved us the $4 million. So that was great news to see.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions from the gallery this evening? No? Mona, is there anybody on the line? Very good. Okay, so we will move on to presentations, petitions, and delegations. I guess first of all, I just want to remind everyone that you have 5 minutes to present. There is 4 presentations. They'll be 5 minutes each, and then there's 2 presentations afterwards that are done by staff and our consultant, and they won't be under the 5-minute requirements. So at this time, I'll call up Josh Leach, who's the president. Oh, and sorry, and is Larry Kurtz here too? Or is it just Josh? Okay, Josh and Larry for the Blues and Jazz Festival. So welcome to you, gentlemen, and thank you very much for being here. Great shirt. Turn your microphone on there, gentlemen. If we could. Oh, thank you, Mona. We get it?
Do we have the presentation? There we go. Can't see it on the big screen. You guys see it? Again, thank you for making the recommendation that we come to council and say hello and show our faces. We very much appreciate that. I'm going to start talking, and first slide really, and it says it all. This is who we are. I want to just remind everyone of our core business. We are a not-for-profit organization, or a registered organization in 2014. We promote an appreciation of the blues and jazz by providing 3 days of, most part, free admission to the town, to the festivities, to the Broadway, to the pop-up music, and so on. We are, go to the next slide. We are a very small board of directors and about 200 volunteers, and we put in about 5,000 hours of volunteer work to put the 3-day festival on. Larry, you want to talk about anything else?
Well, we're well underway planning for next year, and we just wanted to give you an update of how things went last year.
Yep.
And it's just going to continue.
Yeah. So, and the next slide talks about there's a number of people that we do attract to the downtown core of Orangeville. About 75% is local, 25% out of town. The last regional impact model that we were part of participating in showed that the economic impact to be about $1.2 million in direct and indirect spending at the festival. The next slide, I'm going to spend a few minutes just showing where we are from an expense and a revenue perspective in 2023. On the income by source, and it's hard to see, but down in the left-hand corner, I want to just show that a lot of the income comes from festival generated, about 34%. Last year we received 0 from the province of Ontario, 0 from Dufferin County. Central counties, although, did pony up about $43,000 as a one-time grant for us, which really helped the bottom line for sure. From a town of Orangeville, it's about 6% of our $300,000. Canadian Heritage has reduced their grants over the last few years, and I expect the same thing this year. The BIA, who supports us very, very, very much, represents about 13% as well. I won't dwell too much on the expense, but most of the expense comes from putting on music and with performers, artists, and sound and stage, and some administration and some security and sanitation and so on.
So as you can see, last year we had great weather, great attendance, record sales. We also had a record expenses. Everything went up. So we're very happy that we came up even. And it's always our goal to do that. It's a challenge every year to try to balance that out. Last year was a great year.
And we can go on to the next slide. And you know, well put, Larry. You know, last year or this in 2023, everything came together. The weather was beautiful. The programming was amazing. Our folks came out. The patrons came out. The second year after the COVID shutdown, really wanting to be out in the community and enjoying themselves, and we provided that. This is what we did in 2023, and that's basically what I just talked about. We do a survey every year. This 2023 was the best response that we ever saw. Over 500 responses, which is amazing in that business. Just a couple of highlights. 92% respondents rated us awesome to good experience. So that's nice feedback. 81% were returning, and 97% said we're going to come back next year. So we are taking that post festival feedback that we received, along with feedback that we received from council. Thank you. And we're taking that and looking at opportunities to make things better. One of the big ones last year was a concern of ours and a concern from the community and the patrons was the congestion that we created. And you know, I was going to say, you know, this is a good news story. Unfortunately, there were some pinch points there that we are looking at correcting for the next year. So for 2024, we already talked about it. Our plan is to recreate that memorable experience for everyone, and we're going to take that feedback and we're going to make things better from a safety and a congestion and perspective.
While remaining focused on our aim is to provide opportunities for musicians to have a great audience, including tons of local musicians that are able to have a great audience to perform at the festival, and try to provide those kinds of opportunities.
Before I move on to this slide, I want to mention, you know, we do a SWOT analysis and a couple of things that are really loud and clear. We've got financial challenges this year. All levels of government, with the exception of ours, thank you, are cutting back. Almost weekly we hear of festivals having their budgets cut and grants cut and so on. It's going to be tough. And then the second was just the site capacity limitations. We saw that, you know, our street is small, and we're going to stretch that out a little bit this year to make it much better. But our park is just this size, and you know, we cram as much as we can into that. But we've got some challenges that we're going to continue to work through.
Josh, if I may.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So we're at 5 minutes, and I could
Yeah,
I could listen to you all night. I love what you guys do. I just want to be fair to everybody else as well. So why don't we end it there, and I'll just turn it to council, and you'll probably be able to work your way back in as questions come up. But
I only really have one other thing to say, but yeah, go ahead.
okay, Councillor Andrews, did you want to ask a question?
I do, Deputy Mayor Taylor. Thank you very much. And gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. This is one of our pristine events that we have in our community. And I see behind you our Manager of Economic Development and Culture. And this is one of these premier events that brings so much to our community. You know, the vision that Mr. Kurtz and yourself have, this is one of those places to go to, one of the events to go to in the province of Ontario. And of course, the economic driver that you've spoken about, you know, approximately $1.2 million in our community. You've spoken about the challenges that are existing from a grant perspective. And many of us who are keeping our eyes on what's happening in the province and in other parts of our country, the same thing is happening. There are pressure points. So looking at your SWOT analysis and things that you're in fact going through from an organizational perspective, where are you potentially looking for additional support?
Josh or Larry?
This is my last page, of course.
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
How I knew that, I don't know.
So I was going to finish with this, but thanks, Joe. Very, very much appreciated. So I guess, first of all, I'll say, Todd, we're not clear on the process. So the the community grant, do we have to fill out an application, submit it, and as we've done in the past? So my question, not today, but is, who should we talk to and when should we talk to those individuals? But to answer your question, Joe, we're looking for, from the town, a little bit of a bump, and that to offset some of the additional expenses that we're going to incur, but also, I guess specifically, the fees and the services from the town. So which equated to about a little over almost $6,000 last year. So essentially, our grant application will ask for $26,000, so which is a $6,000 bump. Does that answer? Okay, thanks.
And just to follow, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Taylor. And as a follow-up to that, in addition to, of course, your ask, there are other potential support mechanisms that are out there. And I know that you have an array of sponsors and people that have supported the Blues and Jazz Festival almost from the inception. But I take a look at, how this has grown, and I love that photo that is included in your PowerPoint presentation. From a resident perspective and someone that is also, clearly connected to economic development, and support, the numbers of people, and when you have all the things kind of when the stars align, you have everything come together as it did this past June. But moving forward, is there a point in time where you may, as opposed to continuing to do this, have you maybe thought about doing this, scaling back a little bit?
On a fair basis. Thank you for asking. So I'll answer, and then Larry can. We're going to continue as long as the support is there. The support dwindles, after 2024.
And we adjust accordingly.
We're going to make some adjustments. If the support goes away, then
we are lucky to be and watched every penny over the years, and we are in good financial shape at the moment. We have a reserve we can tap into if our goals, but we don't want to do that if we don't have. We are in that position as a backup. Not going to be in any trouble. Start a trend where we're dipping into it.
Very good. All set. Go. Councillor Sherwood would like to ask a question. Go ahead, Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor, through you. Josh and Larry, great to see you guys as always. So as you may or may not have been aware, last year we developed 2 community grant fund pools. And one of the ones that you fell into was the reoccurring. It wasn't a one-time, a one-off reoccurring. So we kind of committed over the next 5 years, or at least in our term of council, we've committed $20,000 to you for the next 4 years continuing. However, that being said, there's nothing saying that you can't apply for more, because we still have a certain amount of dollars in that that particular community grant. So if you have a specific ask, you can get it, but I know that we have basically committed to the 20,000 for sure. There is still a requirement from you to do that community grant application, and I would like to turn that over to our treasurer, if we could, through you, Deputy Mayor, to find out if there's any timelines when that needs to be done.
Mr. Kelly, do you want to speak to this item?
I think we can work with them offline. We want to make sure we give them factual, detailed information, and off the cuff response wouldn't be appropriate tonight. So we appreciate the question. We'll connect back and make sure that you're aware of the process. We do have a report coming a little bit later that we will update on the community grant process, but for this particular one, there's a few moving parts.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any further questions from council? Just for me, thank you, gentlemen. Honestly, it's the greatest weekend of the year in Orangeville. I mean, yourselves and the Rotary Club and my little Optimist Club. There's 3 great events and a bunch of other ones, but we're certainly grateful for everything you do. And it's not lost on me seeing what you're doing and how short you are. Like, it's a group of merry people who are small and mighty, and we're very grateful for all that you do. And I think you can count on this council to help and chip in any way that is needed. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Very good. Okay, so at this time, 12:02, I'd like to call on Sonia McDonald, who will be speaking to the Edify Center Community Support and Sustainability, 311A. Sonia, it is great to see you. Thank you for being here. You brought your partner too?
Absolutely.
Just here for looks, or will you be speaking?
We'll be
Just
speaking.
looks. Okay, excellent. Sonia, go ahead.
My name is Sonia McDonald. We live here in Orangeville and we operate the Edify Center out of 311A Broadway. Your name?
I'm Brian McFadden and I operate out of the same location as Sonia.
Do I have access to push it or no? So if anybody has heard me speak before, I'm going to do my best to do this in 5 minutes.
Nice.
I already did that. So we wanted to be here today just to talk a little bit about our center. And so if you haven't been to the center, please feel free to contact us, come for a tour, come and see the new space. It is brilliant. Currently, we have a classroom common area. Oh, you can see it on the screen. We have a full gym space. We have 4 counseling spaces at this time. And what we do is we operate a mental health education center. So we do an enormous amount of workshops that not only include mental health education, but also fun, in the moment, self-care, coping type of workshops. We run a full counseling service. We have 4 team members right now with us. And then, of course, we run our physical focus program, which Brian can speak to if there's questions after, but we run a therapeutic boxing program out of our space that has quite a few components. And one of the components that seems to be the most popular in our community is our Fighter 30-30 program. And that is essentially 30 minutes of counseling and 30 minutes of boxing in the same hour. And in that program, we have found an enormous amount of success. And so we know that we all have mental health, and some of us struggle with our mental health. And I brought to you today some of the most current statistics, and I won't go through all of the pieces, but these are the most current that have come out from StatsCan in September 2023, and also the Mental Health Research Canada has put these out in October. We're seeing an enormous rise in mental health concerns post-pandemic. And some of the statistics that are really quite alarming are around recent diagnosis around mood disorder, anxiety disorders, and I do a lot of training around suicide intervention, and some of these rates have just changed in the last few months. So for years, we've always said we lose about 4,000 people a year in Canada to suicide, and that number has now bumped to 4,500. And so we know that's about 12 Canadians a day that we lose to suicide. And that's something that we're dealing with at the center quite often. So here's what we're seeing at the center. And I know you received this in advance, so you've had an opportunity, hopefully, to look at the very specific pieces. This is more of a snapshot. And so in order for us to get through my 5 minutes, we're going to try and get through it as quickly as possible. We get about 4 to 6 calls a week for service. Our process is people come to the center for a tour and a chat to really get a sense of what our non-clinical approach really is. And some of the highlights of the snapshot are really in terms of people who are accessing our service. We want to say about 8 out of 10 people who want to access our service are wanting our Fighter 30-30 program. We are experiencing a huge uptick in intakes. And we figure this is mostly our anecdotal numbers. These are the numbers in-house, but this is also coming from feedback from our clients currently and past. But we know for every about 10 clients this year, 4 have either stopped attending because they can't pay. And that's kind of where we're sitting. So right now we have about 58 families that we're servicing on a regular basis. And quite a few of them are definitely struggling financially. And if anybody knows Brian and I, we work really hard to try and accommodate in whatever creative way we possibly can. We have made amazing connections in our community in the last 5 years. We've had some major challenges as well, just like every other business. COVID was not friendly. also having to move locations. So we would be remiss to not say thank you to this council who was very helpful in helping us obtain the current space that we're in. We have created so many of these connections and partnerships, and we've done everything we can and consulted with so many people in our community. All have been very understanding, all say the same thing to us. We would absolutely love to help you. Everybody tries to strategize. However, everybody's been at a loss because our structure of our organization is very different and very unique. We've had lots of great suggestions, and we've done lots of things currently.
It's 1 minute.
Okay. So our biggest challenge, though, is the limiting parameters in grant writing, because we're not a not-for-profit. And so we're a very unique but essential service in our community. And you can see just on the slide, we have approached multiple people and organizations around grants. We've had some really great successes, absolutely. We also currently are on a crowdfunding campaign. We're doing everything we can at this point to be able to bring in additional funds. And as you know, we've had a major move. So this is our reality today. Our rent has essentially doubled through some of the lockdowns. I would say this number is triple to what we were paying before. And our numbers are huge. In order for us to service the large number of clients that we are experiencing, we have had to take on additional counselors and coaches. And just like any business, we're definitely in that place where we've had to grow our team to meet the demand. And I think that happens pretty much everywhere. And so we essentially are here today because we need your help. We can tell you that we wouldn't be sitting here if we weren't in a position that we desperately felt the need to approach council for some support. We have approached others and we're open to questions, but not only is our service very needed in our community, but our clients need us to keep operating. We need some time to find a more viable space for what we're doing. And we also need some relief to kind of afford us the time to focus on what this is going to look like in our community. We have we create a lot of impact in this community. And to be fair, our clients really need for us to be healthy and in a space where we can help them at a level that they need to be helped.
Thank you very much, Tanya. Appreciate that. You're there. You were there. Appreciate that very much. I hate being the time buzzer person, but if we don't do it, we'll be disrespectful of all the other groups. So appreciate you understanding that. So council, would anybody like to speak to this item? Any questions? Councillor Andrews, please.
Thank you very much. It is so nice to see both of you here tonight. And knowing much about your background too as well. You know, you're a committed councillor, committed coach as well, and provide a lot of support for our community in different ways, and especially from the increase of counseling support that's required in our society post-pandemic. Having said that, you mentioned something in your presentation that I'd like to have a little bit of clarification, a non-clinical approach. And the reason why I bring that up is because we have, on my docket here, 16 other counseling services that exist in our community. Okay. What is different between what you do and what they do?
Thank you. We feel that our service is extremely different because we are very person-centered, first of all. We have a variety of different practitioners in our space. We're also very lucky, and to be very frank, because we're not a not-for-profit organization, we don't have the same parameters necessarily that, say, Dufferin Child and Family Services has, our family transition place. And so in my long experience working in not-for-profit, sometimes the limitations become a barrier to service. Whereas for us, we don't have to say to a young person who's, say, 19, we don't have to say to them, oh, I'm sorry, we can only service until the age of 18 and you have to find another service. Our Fighter 30-30 program and our therapeutic boxing approach is we have not found it anywhere in North America at this point. And so that is a big part of what makes us different. Also, we don't have waiting lists. So the more demand, the more team members we bring on, and the more we can respond to service. We try so hard to not have a waiting list. We don't even call it a waiting list. We call it the standby list in our center.
And I think, may I say something, Joe? I think another part of that too is the actual appearance of the center as far as non-clinical goes. You come into our center, there's bright colors, there's cool little toys sitting around, there's something for everybody of every age. And people that have been through services before, and pretty much have, you know, not wanted to go back to that counseling space. They come into our space, and because of the colors and because of the things that we put in place, the non-clinical things, that encourages them to stay and continue on getting the support that they need. So it's everything else. It's also the visual.
Video down here, just you, Councillor Andrews.
I just have a follow-up to that. And again, thank you for providing that explanation of what is different between your approach and some of the others that exist. There are a number of questions, and I know we have a jam-packed agenda tonight, Deputy Mayor Taylor, but one that I guess I want to ask is, what type of help are you looking for? Exactly. I think that's why you're in front of council tonight.
Yep. So we're looking for financial assistance. We have applied for, don't know what the grant is called. Yeah, so I filled out the application. We filled it out. We sent it to the treasurer. We were just awaiting a response for that. We're not really sure about the process. You saw in the presentation, we have approached multiple different, we've looked at a million different ways to try and secure grants, but because we're not a not-for-profit, we really are excluded from a lot of those things. We tick every box to be a social enterprise. Other than we didn't start as a charity and develop a social enterprise, we've gone the other way. We started a corporation, and every piece of profit gets given back to our clients. We have numerous clients that can't afford to pay, or we offer very interesting, creative ways to try and help them kind of stay. Like, we offer them reduced rates, we do whatever we can. So our hope is that the council here in Orangeville will recognize that we are in a very unique situation, and we wouldn't be here if we didn't really, truly need it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anderson. So you've put into the town. We're just waiting to hear. It hasn't come to this council yet. So when we do, we'll deal with it there. My question for you is, did you apply to Dufferin County as well?
Well, we communicated with Dufferin County is what I can tell you. They said absolutely not, because you're not a not-for-profit. Even with the new guidelines around their community granting, regardless of the fact that we fit all of the boxes for social enterprise, they still said because we're a for-profit corporation, they can't look at that. We spoke to the person here at the Small Business Enterprise to work through that, and they've said no. We've approached the Dufferin Community Foundation as well, which I know is connected to the county, and they're saying essentially the same thing.
Understood. My last question for you is, did you follow up with the economic development? And maybe it's for you, Councillor Andrews, to ask, but have you approached that group for expertise and help in venturing and running your business?
Would have been through the Small Business Enterprise. I'm assuming Ms. McDonald referenced that. Yeah.
They couldn't,
over the years, multiple times. Yeah. We really, truly are in a very unique situation that everyone wants so badly to help. And I don't think we don't need to convince you that there's a need. It's more about trying to help a bit of those funding streams, because really the inflation is causing us such a.
Understood.
Sorry.
Well, council will look forward. Oh, I'm sorry. Councillor Sherwood, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, through you, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to refer this to Ms. Savage because facilities falls under her division. And you mentioned about possibly looking for a more affordable place, and you are a profit. So I don't know if if you could maybe reach out to Ms. Savage, but possibly, there could be an opportunity to go to the Alder Street Arena and rent, wouldn't necessarily be rent free because you're a profit, but perhaps Ms. Savage has some way of looking to see if there's any facilities. There is another facility we have right now that's currently empty, but there's going to be a lot of demands for that. And again, Ms. Savage, maybe you can explain, I think you know what I'm referring to on Town Line, about what's going to happen in that process.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Yeah, so there will be a report coming forward to Council on December 11th to talk about the future of the train station on Town Line. There will be an opportunity to submit some sort of proposal or business plan or an expression of interest if people are interested in renting or leasing that space. That's an option. We could also, it might be something as simple as filling out a rental request form, and then we can see if we could meet your needs based on how much space you need, what types of space. It might be, it might complement what you're doing because there's a gym there. If we were to talk about Alder, there are some facilities already built into that space that might be able to complement what you're doing at the Edify Center here. So if you wanted to get in touch, or if we could, I'll connect maybe through the clerk, I can get your details and we can connect and we can talk.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Savage. Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Anything else further, team? No? Okay. I just wanted to say, Brian and Sonia, I mean, we've run into each other in the community. I've never met two more positive people that are passionate about what they do. So thank you very much for being here, and I wish you all the best. And it sounds like there's a few options here that we can pursue and work with you. So
Great.
Thank you again for being here.
Thank you for
Okay.
having us. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Council, item 12.3, at this time, I would call on Karen Jones, 23 York Street, the Heritage Designation. Thank you very much, Ms. Jones, for being here.
Deputy Mayor Taylor and members of council.
Could you just move your microphone just a little bit closer to you? Just move it. There we go. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Well, good evening. And as I said, Deputy Mayor Taylor and members of council and members of the gallery. My name is Karen Jones and I'm a resident and owner of a heritage property built around 1930 and located on York Street. Just going to read this because I prepared it and I've timed it, so hopefully it's okay. I'm here to request council to revisit the Merchants and Prince of Wales Heritage Conservation District study. Many of you will recall the extensive study that was completed by Linda Addy in conjunction with consultants. The study encompasses a large area of our downtown and received a great deal of input from many residents. The council that initiated this study then proceeded to pass it forward for another council to deal with. That was in a council meeting of September the 10th, 2018. A new council was elected. A pandemic happened. And another almost completely new green council, and I don't mean that politically, I mean just like newbie people. I think there was only one original person that was on the previous council.
You had it right the first time. There was 7 new people.
Oh, really?
But
Okay.
most of us were active and know exactly
Yeah.
what you're referring to and
People, that I
have
spoke
intimate
to.
knowledge of that report.
okay.
Okay.
Many residents from York, so that's why I just went over that because I didn't know if everybody knew about it or how long some of the councillors had been here. Many residents from York Street were in favor of having our street obtain heritage conservation status at that time. They submitted individual letters requesting York Street to be designated a historic district. They understood what this meant and did not succumb to, the fear-mongering of other people saying how it would affect their properties. Our requests went unanswered. And I am here today for myself and fellow residents of York Street for council to revisit the Merchants and Prince of Wales Conservation District study with reference to York Street only. I understand the previous council's hesitation. This study should not be thrown out, but individual areas should be permitted to come forth with their concerns. It just encompassed too large of an area. I don't know any other town or city that would with one swift stroke make that an entire, historic area. It's just didn't seem feasible. But it was the council at the time's request to do this study. In 2011, the Orangeville Business Improvement Association made a move to expand onto York Street. York Street stood their grounds and thwarted the Orangeville, business improvement area association to spread onto York Street. At the same time that this HCD Heritage Conservation District was going on, our street was going through massive restructuring, and the residents all got together. So we had two things going on at the same time. If you remember this, around the same time the historic designation debate was going on, a homeowner on York Street also provided their lovely residents for York Street meetings. The town of Orangeville at that time wanted to remove the trees and widen our street. At this time, the opposition was 100% from all of the residents on York Street. Don't mess with our street was kind of the message we were putting out there, and the town listened. Our street width was maintained, and in so doing, retained its cultural and historic nature. Does this not express how we genuinely feel about our street? It took residents' combined efforts to prevent these changes. One person can't do it. You have to work together. York Street, I look at York Street as the little street that could. And we are fortunate in that the homeowners of York Street maintain and renovate with great care, which has preserved the historical nature of their homes. Several of these homes have additions above garages and considerable extensions, which, if do not already provide secondary living accommodations, could easily be converted with these extensive renovations that they've done with minimal change to provide that. There's another homeowner presently on the street that has already built separate living accommodation where the parents are going to be living there, and the house is still going under extensive renovations. There's also a couple of buildings that are at least the minimum 3 rental units in one of them. So it's amazing and fortunate how none of this recent construction has distracted from the heritage of the street. And I say it's luck.
1 minute, Ms. Jones, if we could.
Pardon me?
It's 1 minute.
Yes.
You have 1 minute left.
Okay. The downtown is lovely and has historic charm, yet a lot of those buildings are facade rebuilds of the originals which were destroyed in the past. The actual Main Street Broadway, now narrow way, lost its historical reference without public input some time ago. The town of Orangeville promotes its historic charm, but strangely has not designated any residential areas for historical significance. Has the town of Orangeville considered what its branding will look like once your historical areas are unrecognizable? You have some gems here that can be easily eroded. Change is inevitable. Implementing this useful legislation for residents and council is beneficial for the future development of Orangeville. We need the help of our elected officials to preserve areas of historical and cultural significance, which benefit the community at large. Again, I'm requesting that you revisit the Merchants and Prince of Wales HCD study with specific regards to York Street. I would like to thank Council for allowing me this time to present. And I would like to end with this one of my favorite Canadian musicians, a phrase, "You don't know what you've got till it's gone." And I would like a raise of hands from York Street residents. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much for that. I recognize the song, but I can't place it. Joni Mitchell? Oh, there you go. That's right. It's Joni Mitchell. Okay. Well, anybody who quotes Joni Mitchell is fine with me. Council, any questions for Ms. Jones? Yes, Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, through you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. Thank you very much, Karen, for coming, and to the residents of York Street. I hear you loud and clear. I am fully in support of revisiting this, obviously not making a decision like this here tonight. But I will let the rest of my colleagues obviously address questions to you. But I would like to be putting a motion. Do I do that now, or do you want the rest of us to speak, or?
Why don't we come back to you?
Thank you. Yeah.
Anything else? Yes, Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor, through you. Karen, it's nice to see you. I know we spoke on the phone earlier regarding this. And I'd just like to say, I really think it's very important that yourself and your street neighbors are here to support you on this effort. Orangeville, one of our claims to fame is being historically significant and relevant and respecting our history while also wanting to grow, but respectfully. And I think these kinds of designations will be necessary moving into the future. We're seeing unmitigated growth. We want to make sure we balance that with our past and really recognize where we're coming from. So I will support a motion when Councillor Sherwood puts it forward, if she does, to take it to staff to study.
I think
Thank you.
I think it's good for council too, because I think it gives them more leverage with growth and with the way things are going. I mean, maybe it won't give them leverage, but it doesn't hurt to have it,
Mr. Koslak, did you want to speak to this item?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. Through you, just wanted to mention, I guess, the Heritage Orangeville had looked at this area again. So I'd recommend, if council is in support, to be able to send it back to the Heritage Committee to have them review it in more detail, and staff can work with it from our planning group. I think Mrs. Jones had it correct. The area was too big originally when they tried doing it. Oh, okay. It was too.
Tom, and I'm not married to Tom.
How many musical references can you work in a night?
I think originally when it was proposed in 2018, it was too big an area. So you did have a lot of people in the area that either supported it, didn't support it. And I think that's one of the reasons at the time failed. At this time, we have a supportive group. At least then we can try and look at the different areas. But if we can put it back to Heritage Orangeville and our planning staff to look at it in a bit more detail, then a report can come back to council.
Very good. Mr. McIntosh, did you want to speak to this before? Okay. Well, why don't we I'll just offer my thoughts if I could. The thing that concerns me, and I remember last time, the controversy and really the anger that was in the room, and really it wasn't Orangeville at its best, quite frankly. It was embarrassing and difficult to watch, with neighborhoods pitted against each other and whatnot. My feeling on this is I love the way you phrased it. I love the way that you've come and just talked about York Street. So, candidly, if this ever does come to council, I'll have to declare a conflict because I am your neighbor. I'm on Zina, and that street saw things differently at the time.
It's not personal from.
No, of course, but it'll have to be something that everyone on the street, or the vast majority, wants to have happen, right? In my view, York Street is probably the most beautiful street in our town. And, it would be something to protect for sure. It's just how do we go about doing that? And
we see a lot of pedestrian traffic that don't even go to the park.
I'll wave at you as I walk by. And I would agree. I mean, if that's where we're going to go through Councillor Sherwood, if Linda Addy could lead that with our committee, I think that would be an amazing turn of events, and we'll look forward to seeing what that report is. So I'll turn it to you, Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I am sitting here looking at the district designation under the Ontario Heritage Act, and we are obligated under the Ontario Heritage to have a committee. So my motion will be similar to what our general manager stated, that this go back to the Heritage Committee to report back on possibly designating York Street only as a heritage conservation district. And obviously, once the committee takes this direction from council, they will come back and do all kinds of public support and engagement and stuff like that. But I'm glad that you're here only for your own street. All other actually, this isn't part of my motion. I'm kind of blurping off, but I think you get the drift of my motion, Madam Clerk, that this go back to Heritage Committee.
Okay, very good. Councillor McIntosh, you wish to second that? Very good, thank you. Any further comments, council? No? All in favor? Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay. Item 12.4 is the Dufferin Dufferin County Cultural Resource Center, and I'll call on Deb Egerton at this time. Oh, and Councillor Andrews, thank you very much. If you could remove yourself due to your conflict. Thank you, sir. Yeah. Deb, we're just going to wait till the room lines out and Councillor Andrews is able to get in the hallway. Yeah. Okay, Deb, at 7:54, I turn the meeting over to you. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. My actual purpose this evening is to see if there were any questions from council based on the application that I have put forward. If you're interested in some of the plans for next year, we've got bands coming. We're going to have a massive art show. The whole theme to the event next year is called Healing the Circle, which basically means bringing all cultures back together, along with the Indigenous community, which is how we've always, well, the community has always been. So giving you that, I'm hoping we can work in partnership the way we have over the last 9 years. Of course, next year is a huge celebration. It will be our 10th year, bringing National Indigenous Peoples Day to Orangeville.
So would anybody like to ask any questions? Yep, go ahead, Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you. Hi, Debbie.
Sir.
Can you just go over your request again, what you're looking for and what it will be used for?
Oh, absolutely. I apologize. We're looking for 10,000 this year. Next year. We're hoping to use that money to help offset some of the costs, like renting the space, the park. And of course, we're going to have 3 big drums coming to the event this year. And as our partnership continues, some of that will be put towards covering the cost of those drums. And of course, the town of Orangeville will have a partnership logo go across 3 big screens on a stage we're going to put together this year as a partnership. And so it'll be a whole different process that we're going to be working with this year. We want to celebrate all the partners we have.
Council, would anybody else like to ask questions? I have some questions. So where can you tell us more? It feels like I'm not grasping what you're doing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are you doing this? What's the date?
Well, we're looking.
Big screens.
Yeah, we're
going at the Resource Circle.
Yeah, we're going to be at Alexandra Park.
Yeah.
Next year. We're going back to our beginning.
Yes.
And we're going to be renting a stage with 3 screens this year. We're going to have 5 musicians. 3 of them are local, and we're also going to have some other Indigenous artists singing. There's going to be a tent with, I think we're at 10 different artists. It'll be a juried show for the artists, for painters, sculptors to have in a tent. We're hoping to bring together the entire circle, so to speak, in a massive market so that everybody will be able to have their wares for sale in a market alongside with the Indigenous community as well.
Councillor Sherwood, would you like to speak to this item?
You're finished. You're finished?
Well, for now.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. Hi, Deb. Nice to see you. I can see your vision. I know that you've really tried to grow this from your first year when I think there was maybe 6 people around your little group, and you're really growing. I do have some comments and some dialogue, but it's going to be directed to staff. So I am going to hold off and wait until we get to the actual staff report. But I thank you very much for coming this evening.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Debbie's just thanking you because you're such a nice person for being here.
Oh, no, I am.
Yeah.
I apologize.
I just want to be as upfront with you as I can. And
Absolutely,
you're
please.
asking for $10,000 of taxpayers' money.
Yes.
Whenever I read your business plans, honestly, I struggle. I struggle to understand what you're trying to do. And I honestly think that $10,000 of taxpayers' money is a lot to give to one organization. I won't be in favor of doing that.
Understood.
Okay. So, you came last time, you asked for the lands at the train station. I was trying to be as kind as I possibly could through that. There wasn't a great business plan there, and same thing, taxpayers' money. I need more details about what you're trying to do. It's not that I don't hold your organization in high esteem. I want to be very clear of that. I just can't hand over money.
No,
in that way.
understood.
And I'm only one vote on council. I just want to say that to you face to face.
Absolutely. I appreciate your honesty, sir.
Okay. Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you. Deb, if you were to get a lower amount of money, could we still go ahead with this?
Absolutely. Like I said, we're asking 10, but that's not a necessity. We are writing other grants as well. So this is just trying to continue our partnership with the town.
Thank you.
Yep, I thought so. Good. Okay. Thank you very much for being here.
You're very welcome.
I guess at this time, that's the end of presentations and committees of the 12-1 through 12-4. And we'll just take a quick break here and ask that Councillor Andrews comes back in. You will? Good. Okay. Welcome back, Councillor Andrews. Thank you very much for coming back. So Council, this is item 12.5. And at this time, we will turn it over to Blackline Consulting. And this is the organizational review findings. Thank you very much for being here, sir. We're looking forward to this.
Good evening. Hi. I'll just give it a moment until the presentation comes up. But I'm John Noss. I'm a partner at Blackline Consulting. I led the engagement, and I believe the last time I was here, I gave you a bit of a progress update. So today I'll give you the final report and the results thereof. All right, great. So in terms of agenda today, brief overview of context as to the background. We'll talk about the forecast because one of the kind of key questions is about how to manage growth or continue to manage the growth that you're having. I'll take you through some of the key observations that Blackline derived based on our analysis, the opportunities. We'll focus on the top 10 priorities that we identified. Talk a little bit about measuring performance and some measures that we'd recommend taking forward, and wrap up on a conclusion. So in terms of the background, our scope of work had 6 areas that we were looking at. Effectively, the first was around identifying common practices and comparing it how the town operates, and also looking at what performance or key performance indicators you have in place and which ones you may want to adopt, identifying areas for improvement, developing a plan to implement those recommendations, looking at the service delivery model, so your staffing and how you deliver those services, as well as what does that look like over the next 5 years, and then also a plan or a method then to review that on a regular basis. For me, what was interesting is as we conducted this work, one of the first things I like to look at is your strategic plan. It was really interesting that 2 of the goals kind of really stuck out for me, which is that corporate capacity and that future readiness. So for me, I think keep that in the background of your head and see how these things really align. But at the onset, one of the things that was very evident as we worked with the senior leadership team was making this a very collaborative exercise. And organizational reviews can cause a bit of angst. And for me, I think the real question that we wanted to get to is how to manage your growth efficiently. So we used a number of different sources, and given my background, we definitely tried to rely on multiple different sources to tell us what does that mean and not just take things on face value. So we did what we're called service profiles, where we have a list of municipal services, staff and management fill in the information, and then we're able to assess it and compare against other municipalities. We gathered information around policy, documentation, so we could analyze that. We did what we called process shadowing. And this is really where we literally sit with other staff members. We did some ride-alongs as well with some of the staff to see, and what do they do? How do they do things? Because that's where we really see maybe where some of the inefficiencies are. And lastly, consultation, interviews, group interviews, staff surveys. So as you can see, it was quite broad. We then come up with a broad list of opportunities. We then break that down, and what you see today is through a prioritization process, we identified a top 10. Now, those are recommendations that Blackline had put forth to senior leadership team. They looked at them and said, yeah, that sounds great. Go ahead and do a bit more work. There's a longer list in the report. I think it's the appendix. There's about 62 other opportunities. We couldn't have done that without the help of staff. And I do think, well, maybe at the beginning, as we did the interviews, there was a bit of angst. By the end, it seemed like they're in a good position. Forecasting. So when we do this type of work, we do like to look at, well, what does the growth look like? And I'll be the first one to say we've done a few of these models for other municipalities. It will be wrong. It's there as a tool for management to guide the future forecasting. So next year, and that's why I was really excited that you didn't just ask for the forecasting, you said, how do we review it on an annual basis to make sure that we're right? Because growth isn't linear, yeah, and especially with inflation and interest rates, it could be a little bit slower and then come up very quickly. But as you can see here, we've got a list of what we see as, you know, the first four are the main, what we call variables that drive growth: population, household, roads, and then outdoor rec. Indoor to a smaller extent, but you can see that's a small percentage. We also then look at, and I gave some examples in here in the report, so there's lots more, but which are the ones that are then impacted by it? So for example, population goes up, usually rec programming also sees a bump. So we need to make sure that staffing and programming is available. So that's one example. Roads is another great one, and today's probably perfect for it. You know, it's snowing. You know, the more roads you have, the more you need to clear. So we use this as a basis to build the model and a relationship between these drivers and different services that you provide to then come up with a forecast. So as you see in the report, the detailed report, and I didn't want to get too much into the numbers for each of the departments, but as you can see here, we're then able to build that out into two categories. One is the yellow, which is management. So that's directors, managers, supervisors. And as the staff increases, we need to keep a similar ratio for managing those staff as well. So if I've got 5 staff today, but over the next few years, I'm going to double, I may need another supervisor. Yeah, so we just need to make sure. So we keep that. The model takes that into consideration. The greenish color that you see there, that's staff. So that's kind of everything else. We do look at positions. So these could be part-time, full-time, contracted, semi-contracted, and so on. But as you can see, the one half, we've got what we call without automation. So that's purely looking at it's driving, it's increasing. What does that mean? Growing with automation, as we've looked at your services, we've said, here are some areas that we think you could improve upon. You might get better efficiency out of it. So that's why I give you two perspectives. As you can see, the net, because it's only over a 5-year time frame, it's only about four kind of headcount or 4 positions different. If we extrapolate further out, that's when you probably start to see it. I think the best example I can give you, given my technology background, usually you've got a project that's 2 to 3 years for the technology to be implemented. So you start seeing the benefits thereafter. So you can see that in a 5-year time frame, you start to see it, but not a whole lot. It's probably thereafter. Yeah. Some of the key observations, and there's many in our report, but I did want to kind of bring it back to the focus of our review structurally. So are you set up sound for your future growth? One of the things that we did look at is to make sure that, do you have the right flexibility? Do you have the right reporting lines? That type of thing. The department and divisional structures, are they in the right areas? So all those things we looked at and compared to previous work as well. And from our perspective, we do actually think you're in a good position. We don't see justification for massive restructuring or moving services around. Whenever we do this, there's always going to be small areas that you may want to refine and revise as you go through it, but that's at the lower levels. So nothing that gave us cause for concern. The other portion of it is staffing. So are we adequately staffed to go forward with it? So the first thing I wanted to mention is you do have a really good mix of using in-house staff and contractors. So contracting, you can imagine you can flex maybe when you need to, but staffing gives that core kind of capability. So that's a really positive. The second point, one of the data points that we do like to look at is overtime and time in lieu. We didn't see anything systemic to say you don't have enough capacity. So I think that's a good indicator. There's pockets of it, and there always will be. Fire and some of the road staff, that's very variable in terms of some of their work that they have and seasonal. But overall, didn't see any major issues there. Lastly, we did look at shared services. It's always something that we look at. You know, are there services that maybe you do internally that you could do with share with either the county or neighboring municipalities? There's a few, but it's on the smaller side of the scale. So when you look at that list, it's fairly small in terms of impact to the organization. And I would, always caveat that when you enter in shared services, it should be for a longer period of time that you're looking at it. So make sure there's a good business case behind it. But there's definitely ones to explore over the next 5 years. Lastly, delivery. And I think in my last presentation, I gave some early indications. The town's operating with not with a whole lot of what we call service expectations or definition around that. So again, getting good feedback from community about what their expectations are, what's being met, what some of their desires are, but then also being able to measure against those and say, well, how are we performing? Are we a B, a C, or a D? So that's definitely one area to improve upon. Services, as we did the process shadowing, both for areas in kind of office space as well as outdoor, still very paper-based and manual. So again, I think in this day and age, managing efficient growth is going to be about making sure you've got the right tools and equipment. And lastly, coordination of communication across departments, divisions did come up. But I know as we started this, that was a real kind of focal point, which is to make sure that we had some good town halls and communications. And I believe there's also work that's underway that's going to enhance some of that communication. It's been well received so far, at least from our interactions with staff. The next few pages, I'm going to go through the opportunities. I'm not going to spend as much time. I'm sure you've read the report. Give you some time so you can ask me some questions. The first one that I have listed here is around service level framework. So it is really very much about identifying what those expectations are from the community, as well as then working to see what can we measure and how are we doing. Create a baseline and then start measuring against it year over year. It can also be really helpful to identify where there's an expectation maybe from residents or businesses that they want an improvement, to then correlate that to, well, what staffing do we need? What does that mean in terms of the resources and the funds for it? Customer service framework, you don't have a policy today. I've definitely seen the work that we're doing with other municipalities since the pandemic. Customer service has been really at the forefront. I think it's because historically there was usually kind of walk-in and maybe email. Now it's walk-in, phone, email, and online. So getting some consistency around what customer service is, how you handle it, as well as then training staff that are involved in it. And definitely, I think there's going to be an improvement around resident expectations, but then also streamlining maybe some of the activities that occur internally. Enhance the town's approach to project prioritization. You do have a method for prioritizing. It's more about connecting that resourcing side to say, when we reprioritize things, because I'm sure in a given year, there are things that are going to come up. It's not a static year. How do we manage that? How do we move things around, and what can we do with that? Develop a IT master plan. Again, you really want to make sure you've got a good 3-5 year kind of outlook around what some of those investments are going to be, what the benefits you expect from them, which departments are going to be affected by it, and in some cases also the residents as well. There might be some more things that are going to enhance the resident experience. The next one's a little bit more technical, but what we found as we did our reviews, there wasn't necessarily an owner for some of the systems. And then when you think about, well, IT can't be the individuals that are the experts for finance, accounting, asset management, roads, works, et cetera. You really need someone from the business to be a champion to say, well, that's my system and this is what I want to do. IT, please come and help me improve it and enhance it. So effectively, that's what establishing a system owner is within the different departments, looking at the systems that they use for the most part, who's the owner, and then who's then going to be working with IT to move that forward. Payroll automation, pretty self-explanatory. Right now, it's fairly paper-based and there's lots of workarounds, and that does have a significant impact, everything from staff through management. The next one as well, very similar, automate approval process. So digital signatures, and then looking at those processes to say, are there a way to increase the way that we do maybe some of the workflow flows for internal processing, as well as then providing those signatures to reduce the duration and time around getting those things approved and signed off. Digitizing historical permits and building inspections. You're moving to a new system, but there's all the historical records and being able to look that up. And that's going to be helpful both from a staff perspective as well as residents and businesses. They're definitely going to see that benefit as well. Last two. while we move forward with technology and we've got more data, and that's happening on a daily basis, it's making sure you've got the right systems in place to use the data, but then also train staff. We have to make sure that we're able to move staff along so that they're able to access that data and use it in a way that's helpful, both to do their day jobs as well as present to yourselves to make sure that you've got good information when you make decision. And last but not least, fleet management, putting together policy around what is our fleets, what are our policies around, whether it's leasing, purchasing, maintenance, who is responsible for that, and building out a plan behind it as well so you can forecast out that capital plan. So those are the 10 that we had identified. We've put together a kind of a Gantt chart, if you will. The H's stand for half, so half one, half two. The way that we've built this plan, just a bit of background, is we base it on a bit of urgency as well as dependency. We then give it to senior leadership team to say, do you see anything that's really wrong with that? I know you're going into budgeting, so this is another input into that, I imagine. So things will move around, but the bar gives you an indication of what we think the duration would be. So even if we were to move some of those things around, that's absolutely fine. It's just to give you an indication. Second last slide. Measures. You've got some of these measures already, but for the work that we do when we look at other municipalities and some of the things that when we assess a municipality, there's a nice mix here. And we've tried to keep it short and sharp to look at, say, well, give me some indicators, some things that we think that maybe we should look at to show value for dollar to our residents, to businesses, as well as how we're operating, whether it's around efficiency, effectiveness, or transparency. So to conclude, three things to really, I think, to wrap up on. One, I think you're well positioned to manage growth in terms of structural. So no real restructuring that's required. There's maybe some small things, but I would leave that at the management level for them to decide. There's some immediate investments that we've identified for staffing, and I think you'll see that probably in the budgeting. You'll see a bit of that later on. So I think that, again, in a good position, but there are some areas that you need to shore up. Number two is a really big one. And I think this is, as you kind of, again, that corporate capacity, that future readiness, I think it echoes that, which is really we need to continue to modernize. Doesn't mean we're moving digital. Okay, so I don't want to leave that with you to say, we're not going online for everything. What it is just making sure that the way that we do things, we are using the most efficient ways as possible. And lastly, number three is about measuring. Let's measure. Measure all the things that we're good at and how we're going to get better. So thank you very much for your time today.
Very good. Thank you very much for that report, John. It struck me while I was reading it. I was excited to see what you were putting forward. It makes me very optimistic about what the town can be and how efficient we can become and the amount of work that we can get at. And Council, if it's okay, just before I turn it over to Council for questions and whatnot, I think it's most appropriate, in my view, what we're going to do with this report is we'll get into the top line, from an advisory standpoint, essentially this board of directors will look at this and whatnot, but it's the operational piece that's really going to happen. And all we're going to do is take it and go over to you, Mr. Smith. Obviously we'll be partners in it, but it'll be a 90-10 ratio, 10 for council and 90 for you, sir. So I just thought maybe it would be best if we turned it to you and have your thoughts and anything you wanted to say, and then we'll come back to council.
Sure. Yeah, thank you very much. And I like the language you used when we met with staff today, and John kindly presented to all of our staff today. I use the term, it's a page turner. The report, you want to read it and see what's coming next. So thank you for that. And I do want to acknowledge the work that Blackline did. This is their report, and I think John and his team have done an admirable job at identifying many of the strengths in our organization, and that the solid structure that we have in place currently. I can tell you, having worked through similar projects, and John made reference to it today, not every organization has that advantage. Much of his work, I suspect, is restructuring and rebuilding organizations. And in Orangeville, that's not the case. We worked very collaboratively, but again, it was his report and his team's report. They worked very closely with our staff at all levels and through a variety of different inputs. I think that the recommendations make sense. They are aligned with what the senior leadership team and our staff were thinking, and I would say anecdotally new, but they've affirmed it and they've given us a real path forward, and we're excited about the opportunities to do that. One of the challenges we will have is resourcing. The action plan to get from here to there requires some resources, so that will definitely be a challenge. The opportunity to use technology better is something that our staff, as they join our organization, are keen to embrace. Our intent, and we shared this with staff today, is to take this as one of our inputs. There are many other inputs that go into developing our work plan. There's council priorities, there's our strategic plan, there's community needs. This is one that helps the administration side of our business get better. So we'll take this as an input. We'll work through the budget. As I said, it aligns very much with our priorities, and we'll report back to council on how we advance this. And my last comment is, really want to stress that this isn't something that isn't welcome. It is very welcome from the staff perspective. It was a thoughtful process, and when that process is followed, staff embrace it, and senior staff have, and I certainly have. So we welcome it, and we will action it.
Very good. Thank you for that, Mr. Smith. Councillor Andrews, would you like to speak to this item?
I do, Deputy Mayor Taylor, and through you, I want to again thank you and Mr. Smith on how you framed it. This is very much a document that is going to provide guidance to the senior leaders. Guidance to the senior leadership team, as well as others within the organization. I have three quick little comments on the report. And again, I was very impressed by the report itself, and one question, possibly two. I liked how you, in fact, your second last slide highlighted the measuring of performance. An organization is only as good as the people that it assembles, and the guidance that is given to them, and giving them the opportunity to, of course, chart their course and manage it accordingly. I love the dashboard. I have a lot of familiarity on the senior leadership team dashboard initiative. And again, I came from a world that was implemented on a regular basis, and I'm glad that was included. And also, I really like the point that was on page 22 of your document here about the definition of systems owners. And that really frames it well within the organization, where you have the ownership of those particular departments and individuals, and it provides an opportunity for some responsibility, but an outcome that's positive. What was really intriguing, John, was the point of automation, the term of automation that scares a lot of people. And in these times of the word AI, is that also included in kind of that umbrella definition?
Your Worship, not really. And I say that I say that because of the time frame that you have for 5 years. There's actually a lot of other things I think you can do that are going to be beneficial than going to the AI front. And I raise that because we did a similar review probably about 2 years ago, and it was a 20-year outlook, and AI was definitely on the list, but that was, again, kind of further out. So I think, you may be opportunistic when there's things that come up, but there was a lot of other things on the technology front that I think you can focus in on for the next 5 years.
Very good. And very quickly, and I know that you had referenced also possibilities of shared activity with other municipalities. I know that this was driven through the town, but was there any connection with any of the other municipalities in any of the dialogue, including the county itself?
To your Worship, no. It was very much focused on, and we try to take the perspective of what's best for the town and for your residents. So the town's in a unique position where, we've worked with other municipalities where it would be beneficial to work with someone else that's larger. You're the opposite. So it's so you wouldn't necessarily get some of those benefits. So that's why it's a slightly different situation. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Councillor Sherwood.
Oh, yes, through. I'm going to call you Worship tonight.
I don't know if I can answer.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's far more than what I expected, to tell you the truth. It almost appears to me like it's more of a service delivery type of document, whereas maybe I'm a little naive when I thought when we were first doing this, you were going to come back to me and say, here's one, or us, here's one page and you need one person IT, you need one person in clerks. And that's what I was kind of expecting. But wow, this has kind of overwhelmed me to the fact that I do need more time to read it, absorb it, and, you know, possibly take on. But I want to go back to your original time when you came here, and you told us we were kind of sitting in a very good position. And I think you're reiterating it back in your report tonight, that you basically have solidified that we are doing okay as far as staffing. Because I know in the last budget we had I think an FTE ask of 19 or something like that, and it went back. So save and accept a few that you've mentioned here of additionals, we are in a good position as far as the numbers. Did you come to that conclusion before you reached out to the staff, or has your position changed at all on that?
Yeah, through your worship. So I answer in two parts, and I think you're absolutely right with the title org review is actually a bit misleading, because what you've asked for is really looking at how well are we delivering our work and how can we improve maybe that. So it's kind of two aspects to it. So I do recognize that comment. The analysis, like I said, we actually do it in tandem. So so early on, what we do is we ask for a bunch of information and data and analytics from the town. Then we do the consultation as well. So what we're trying to do is look for where do these data points align. The third data point that we use as well, which is kind of an helpful indicator, especially on the staffing, where we're able to kind of go through and say, well, where do we need maybe a few more here or there? We've worked with, Blackline's worked over the 10 years with probably about 20 some odd municipalities directly, and I'd probably say around 50 indirectly through kind of peer analysis and so on. So we've got data points that we're able to look at kind of more specific areas and say, how are you set? And in some areas, that's where we're able to come up with that conclusion to say, does that make sense? Do you need another individual or not? But I would echo, for me, if I was, and I said this today at the town hall for the staff, I said, you should probably be excited for your staff. You've got growth, you've got some interesting projects. It feels like like you're entering into an age of some real kind of, interesting times.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are you good? Councillor Prendergast?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor, through you. I'd just like to congratulate you on this really comprehensive report that you've done for us. And you've highlighted a lot of, I guess, the issues that staff have raised, and always it's nice to hear the voices of the people doing the jobs. And I think that they'll feel seen and heard and honored. And really a lot of things have come to light through the almost 60 opportunities, as you called them. And I like how everything is framed in a really positive light. And there are some things there that we're seeing, and maybe for the first time, some issues that can be addressed, and just having them be put on paper will help those issues be solved and create a happier workplace for the town of Orangeville staff. So thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor. Few comments if I could. It's so interesting. I love there was 5 comments about shared services, and you're arriving at our doorstep at a very opportune time. There's actually, if the public isn't aware, I know council is, but there's meetings at the county about shared services and really the future of that service model and what it could look like. So it's a very appropriate time for us to be looking at what services should Orangeville be doing and what should we not be doing in terms of our relationship with the council. And then my other thoughts were, and it's not necessarily for you, John, but just in terms of backing up the report, I love the investment in technology. I think that's key for sure. And there's things that we're doing today that I think in a very short period of time, we're going to question why we did them. For an example, we don't have the ability to sign electronically right now. I have to scan and send it in, and it's painful because I'm not in the building on a regular basis. So things like that are difficult, and I think we're going to laugh at ourselves a couple of years from now, realizing that we did these things. But what I'm most excited about is, and this is a comment for the people in the room and senior management. I look at all of you people, and I'm not here following you around on a regular basis, but I certainly have the utmost of respect for what you do. And I guess I'm really staring at the 3 people who are sitting over here. The amount of things that you do in a day is outrageous. And the amount of detail that you have to dive into that you really shouldn't have to is not necessary. Like if I had my way, and I was talking about this today with our CIO, I would much rather that it's visionary and perhaps on a low side, it's initiative-based mentoring to the management team. And you're up here talking about the great vision that you have and how you're going to implement that for your department. And it's layering up to someone who's the CAO, who's helping you oversee that vision as well. And it's so sad today because, you know, Tim, you're talking about sidewalks with me, and I'm not suggesting it's not important, but it's really not what we want you to do. And Heather, I mean, you've been involved in many of these things as well, and that's not what we want you spending your time on. So I think the way that this is worded, I got excited because I started thinking, oh my goodness, the initiatives that we want to put together to make our town a better place. That's exactly what we want the three of you. I don't know, 3.5 of you. I don't know where we'd put you, but you know, working on and not involved in the minutia of the day to day, right? And that's where I'd really like to see this organization get to. And if I left here at some point out of this position, I love that to be something that we left behind, is that these high-powered thinkers actually get to think as opposed to do. Some people wouldn't understand necessarily what I'm trying to put forth. I'm not suggesting you don't do anything, but it's not a day-to-day do. You know, somebody would come in and see these initiatives move. So anyway, my point is your report really resonated with me, and to our CIO, I look forward to bringing this forward and implementing it, and anything that we can do to help enable you, I'm sure that you'll have our full support. So yeah, very good. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Council, I'd like to ask the question. So at this point, at 8:30, we're about ready to get into something that's going to be very deep and detailed. Does anyone want to take this time now to have a 5-minute break, or are you cringing that I just said that? No? Are you ready for a break? Why don't we take 5 minutes and then we'll come back and we'll go with Mr. Kelly at that time. Okay? Yeah. Okay. So we'll see you back here at 8:36. Just so you know, usually it's Mayor Post yelling at me to get back to my seat. You're the naughty one. I'm on what? I'm ready to go? Okay, very good. So welcome back from our break. We are at the point in our program where we're going to have the budget presentations, and I will call I will call on Mr. Kelly, who is jogging into his seat at this time. It's over to you, sir.
Perfect timing. Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor Taylor. And just before I open, I wanted to note the broken glass sound you heard earlier, I think came out of excitement for the report that I'm about to present here, or it was going along with the music theme and makes me think of Annie Lennox this evening. So
yes,
I will share my presentation. I hope it can come up on the screen, and I'm supposed to turn on my camera. Yes. There we go. So thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor, council, and members of the community. It gives me distinct pleasure tonight to formally table the town's 2024 municipal budget. This evening, I'm sharing a high-level overview of the budget, and I do think it gives a unique opportunity to provide some of that, as CAO Smith referred to, some additional context to people that are delving into this 300-plus page document. So without further ado, I'll jump into it here. So a quick overview of what we're going through tonight, just a high-level budget 101 for people that may be new to municipal budgeting. Following that, walk through some of the key drivers in this year's budget and long-term forecast. Obviously, one of the key drivers is going to be service level changes that are being brought forward, both from a staffing and non-staffing perspective. We do also have a number of improvements that we've implemented to this year's budget process. Obviously, the cat's out of the bag with the agenda being released earlier, the OPP contract renewal, and some of the figures from that I'll outline tonight, and also go through how that provided an opportunity from staff's perspective for the town to recalibrate our approach to budgeting and long-term financial planning. Finally, I'll provide a brief update of debt and reserve funds and a bottom line impact of what's coming forward. So this budget schedule just provides a quick overview of how we got to where we are today. So we are on the red indicated time of tabling the budget. So this is being brought forward tonight prior to next week's meetings on the capital budget and operating budget, a chance for council and the community to absorb some of the information within the budget, but we're on target to have council approval of this budget prior to the end of the fiscal year. So this is the budget 101 piece. So essentially, what I wanted to get into here is that the budget is a plan that's based on a series of estimates, and it's our mission as staff to provide the best information for council to make informed decisions on service delivery and capital investments, factoring input from stakeholders in the community. Finally, council will be tasked with approving the general tax levy, which is the net funding required to deliver on community expectations. The consolidated budget is a combination of two components. So the operating budget includes our day-to-day costs and revenues to run the town. They'll include staffing costs, fuel, utilities, maintenance and repair costs. And then on top of that is the capital budget, which represents the infrastructure investments that are made into maintaining and growing our infrastructure for the community. The combination of the two separate items there is what we bring together into a consolidated budget, which is required to identify the levy requirement. So as with any process or plan, staff do approach it through the lens of the strategic plan for the town. So this plan was established by council with input from staff and the community. And the consolidated budget that's being tabled this evening does take into account efforts by staff to meet those four main goals of corporate capacity, future readiness, community vitality, and economic resilience. Staff were tasked with bringing forward their budgets following a series of guiding principles. I won't get to all of them on this slide, but I'll focus on three main ones being public engagement, fiscal responsibility, and modernization and efficiency. Budget is much stronger and a better depiction of community needs the more the public are engaged in that process. And I'm happy to see that some members of the public stuck around for this exciting part of the evening tonight. I do appreciate that. Also, fiscal responsibility. So the finance team works with peers across all service areas to ensure that the budget that we're bringing forward does reflect community needs, but also is done in a fiscally responsible manner. And then finally, given the current economic environment, it's ever more important for us to seek out modernization and efficiency opportunities, which were mentioned in the Blackline report as well. So the budget was prepared with those guiding principles in place. So a budget is a challenge in any year, but budget challenges, I feel, can be overcome through effective collaboration between council and staff. As a town, we need to rationalize all expenses that are required to meet the desired service levels and the strategic priorities of the community. We also need to maximize the use of existing resources, including leveraging technology, also looking at non-tax revenue streams. They'll promote further efficiency and effectiveness across the organization. And in doing all of this, we're challenged as staff, and you are challenged as council to find that delicate balance between community desires and demands, and that the resources that we have within the town to deliver on those. This Venn diagram, I can't take credit for. It's from a presentation that I sat in a number of years ago, but I think it really depicts well the challenge that's before us, that in a perfect world, we would have stable services, we would have lower density, and we would have low taxes, but that, as this depicts in this gentleman's opinion, doesn't exist. So we need to look at what options to leverage to meet the community demands as best we can. Getting into the budget for this year, we identified 4 main budget pressures, one obviously being inflation that hasn't disappeared, though it is starting to gradually slow down a little bit. It's still ticking above 3% at this point in time. And as our CAO and other reports have indicated before, our costs don't align with CPI. The price of asphalt and fuel doesn't move at the same rate as the CPI measure. So also staffing resources, I don't need to get into. That last report outlined that quite clearly. External government funding, those sources that used to be there are starting to become less and less. So we have to focus on own source revenues to fund our municipal budget and fund our operating programs. And then lastly, the service level expectations. We heard a lot this evening of delegations on expectations from the community and services that the community is looking for. Those aren't slowing down. They're only going to increase into the future. So this slide, I think, is effective of level setting and helping the community and council to understand what a 1%, every 1% adjustment in the levy would do. So as you can see, a 1% adjustment would generate approximately $400,000 in additional funding, which on the average residential property owner would be $32, $32.25 in additional tax dollars on an annual basis. Each quarter 25 basis point adjustment is around $100,000 or $8 on the average property. So from a historical context, this is how the town has trended. As you can see, over the past number of years, levy increases have been well below the inflation mark. And over a 5-year average, you can see levy increases are below 2% on average, while inflation rate is above 3% on average. Again, that's the CPI, which isn't a perfect science, but actually if you looked at the costs of the municipality and inflation on those, that yellow trend line would even be higher. So with that context in place, tonight we're here as a staff team and are pleased to table what we feel is a balanced and fair municipal budget for your consideration next week. I'll start by just a quick overview for those that haven't seen what the town's budget report looks like. It's broken down into several chapters, introductory chapters out the front. I will note, in case there's questions from the public, I don't believe Mayor Post does speak fluent Latin. The budget package did include script language in there as a blank. So that is not the mayor's message for this year, and neither is the CAO's message. Those messages are inserted at the point when the budget's formally approved. The message from myself on behalf of my team is included in there. along with, again, a breakdown of the overview and financial health of the organization, gets into the consolidated budget piece, and then through chapters 4 to 9, more detailed departmental operating and capital plans, along with some key performance indicators, and then a summary of where things sit from a debt and reserve standpoint at the end. The main drivers in this year's budget obviously will be inflation. Inflation is that large blue piece of the pie. But the second, or the largest piece of the pie, is what we're bringing forward as what we're referring to as a recalibration of the town's long-term operating and capital plans. The savings generated through the OPP contract provide an opportunity to right-size the town's budget and prepare for the future that's been spoken about at length this evening. The gray piece are the service level changes. So these are new items being added into the budget based on service level expectations. And then the remainder of pieces deal with our contributions to capital, one-time items, some pre-budget approvals, and operating impact of capital. So with regard to service level changes, and I did hear Councillor Sherwood this evening speak to the 19 service level requests from last year. This year, at the initial or first state of the budget, where people are asked to bring forward everything that they need to deliver the services that are expected of them. Each of these positions was brought forward, but under the leadership of CAO Smith and the senior leadership team, a lot of effort was put into prioritizing these positions and being reasonable with a request to bring forward to the community. So happy to report that list was pared down significantly. And the budget being brought forward next week is seeking those five full-time equivalent positions, along with a number of, one additional position within the user pay water service and a shift of a contracted position into full-time, much less than the initial request that was brought forward. In addition to staffing, service level changes also include increases to operational budget lines to meet community desires or community needs, I should say. One key piece I wanted to point out in there is the first one, the enhanced sidewalk repair and replacement program. There's been significant conversation in community and across council about the state of sidewalks within the town. This addition won't bring us to the gold standard of sidewalks in the town of Orangeville, but is a step forward to improving the service delivery with regard to sidewalks. Other ones are listed on that slide, stormwater and IT licensing, and a number of other items, more minor in nature to again, right-size the budget. The staff team here prior to my arrival did a significant amount of work to improve the budget and the way it's brought forward. One is eliminating what is felt across the organization was an unnecessary step in interdepartmental charges across tax levy funded departments. This more or less pitted department against department as to who would get money. All of that balances out to zero in the end, so it was deemed not necessary to continue going forward. Centralization of IT costs within the IT division, so we can see the full cost of that service to the town. Reallocation of our general managers and executive assistant salaries to a consolidated budget within the administration division, and reallocation of customer service representatives' salaries to the finance division, whereas they used to be spread out across the organization. So the piece that got a lot of attention, or will get a lot of attention in this budget process, is this slide. And I can say, as someone did say earlier, for those that were on council back when that difficult decision and challenging time occurred, that this is the outcome that's finally arrived, and it is a significant outcome to the town. The contract renewal, which shifts to cost recovery model and cost recovery billing from the OPP, will generate just about $4 million in savings from what we pay in 2023 to what we will pay in 2024. I would get into more detail on that, but we do have a presentation from the OPP coming forward at a future council meeting that will delve more into that. But this is the financial aspect of it. It is a $4 million savings that we're expecting in 2024. And as prefaced at the start, we feel it's appropriate to use this opportunity to recalibrate the town's budget and avoid continuing with some of these non-sustainable approaches that may have been put in place to keep levy increases at a lower rate. One of those is the use of rate stabilization funding. $865,000 was included in last year's budget as a draw from that reserve fund. That reserve fund should be utilized for emergency type situations where unexpected things are causing increased costs, not just to hit a target that might be established by council, in our opinion. Investment income as well has been significantly higher than one should expect going forward. Those years of higher than expected investment income shouldn't be treated as regular operating income that we can expect every year, and should be put into reserve funds or into other areas other than funding current year operations, because they can't be expected to continue going forward. More sustainable approach to capital financing. The graphic here kind of shows the picture, but at a report in August, staff recommended to council that we would bring forward the budget with an adjustment to the capital funding, a $700,000 increase to bring it to that $3.5 million level, and then inflationary increase over the long term. The asset management plan, a lot of documents speak to the need for internal own source revenues to fund long-term capital needs. This is a step forward in that, as well as an increase to the annual transfer to general capital reserves, which is another $1.5 million impact as we seek a culture of holistic asset management for the town. Overall, the net impact of those recalibration efforts is around $3.8 million, or the majority of that OPP savings. Not getting into detail on this, for those that are reading the budget document, there are tables in there that show the multi-year operating forecast, as well as the 10-year capital forecast. The key piece for those is the bottom line levy impact. You can see on the 10-year capital forecast, it starts at $3.5 million in 2024, and inflationary or 2% adjustments going forward. Debt is a key component to funding municipal. The projected new debt issuances being brought forward in this budget are listed there, the majority of which would be within fire services, and that's to do with the new fire station, which will require debt financing. For an easier way to understand it, each $1 million in new debt issued would result in approximately $65,000 in new debt servicing costs. The graphics there show that our debt servicing costs would be increasing from just under $3 million to just under $4 million, with that significant issuance included. What we look at, longer term debt planning, would look at how much debt we're taking on over the next 10-year horizon. As you can see, the orange there is the debt servicing costs annually. They're well below that orange bar. That orange bar is what's referred to as the annual repayment limit. It's dictated by the province through the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. They advise us the maximum or the cap on annual debt servicing costs. The town is still well below that. Having said that, the debt load, as you can see over the next few years, does start to rise and get quite significant. So looking at any alternative funding streams, grant programs, or our own internal capital financing to avoid debt, we'll keep those at more manageable levels over the long term. Staff have committed to working over the next year to 2 years on developing a debt management strategy and bringing that forward to this council, so they have an understanding of the strategy going forward on debt. With debt comes the opposite side, which is our reserve funds. So you can see in this graphic, based on the current capital forecast, there's significant decreases coming within reserve funds if we were to fund it based on our existing resources without changes to how much we allocate into reserve funds. I will note the majority of that drop and decrease is within our user fund, rate-based reserve funds for water and sanitary. There is a rate study coming forward in 2024 that will hope to bring forward recommendations on how we can start to build up reserves and funding in place for future infrastructure. The combination of the two is where we get our debt to reserve ratio. So we think of our lives at home and the amount of debt that we have versus the amount of equity that we have at home, and we like that to be at more at the rate that you see at the start of that chart versus the mid part of that chart. And that's where the development of a debt management strategy, a reserve fund framework, and overall a long-term financial plan for the town is going to help us avoid time periods where the debt to reserve ratio is suboptimal, I'll say. This consolidated budget is everything factored in together, so you can see efficiencies, obviously, across town operations, and the savings from OPP do see us with a net operating reduction of 4.49%. And the changes in transfers to reserves and the capital program are what we're referring to as that recalibration effort. And that brings us to a bottom line levy requirement of 4.5% adjustment. So the bottom line to the community is the financial impact of a 4.5% levy adjustment is approximately $145 for the average residential property owner. It does allow us to recalibrate the budget, find efficiencies across operating and capital programs, and provides $1.7 million in new funding to support those. So next steps in the process will be our capital budget meeting and our operating budget meeting, which are coming forward next week, early next week, December 4th and 5th, and then ultimately the final budget approval before the end of the year. And I'll wrap up just by saying that throughout that 300-page document, there's many names, there's many positions referenced, but it's purposeful that the last page of that document calls out 3 specific names, and those 3 specific names are sitting beside me this evening. Mandeep Judge, Rebecca Medeiros, and Rocky Cora. A significant amount of effort gets put into the budget. It doesn't take a couple weeks to put this together. It takes the entire year, and it takes a team. And I'm proud to present this on behalf of that team for council and the public's consideration next week. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much, Mr. Kelly. And I just want to commend you. That is the best budget you have done in your time here at Orangeville. Those that don't know, what are you at? 4-month mark in your time here? 5-month mark?
Day 83 today.
Wow, that was just great. Thank you very much for that. So we're not going to do anything with that, council. We've made our minds up that we'll just pass that. We'll wait till Mayor Post comes back next week. So which means we will move on to the consent agenda. So for the consent agenda, the following resolutions have been prepared to facilitate council's consideration of various matters and are voted on collectively unless a member of council otherwise requests. So the recommendations that all consent agenda items for November 27, 2023 council meeting listed under 13.1 staff reports, 13.2 correspondence, and 13.3 committee and board minutes be received, and that all recommendations listed under 13.1 staff reports and 13.2 correspondence be received. Council, is there any items on here that you would like to pull out, or would you like to simply second that motion? Make that motion. Councillor McIntosh, Councillor Sherwood, all in favor? Okay, very good. So that takes us past correspondence and also takes us past committee and board minutes and leads us into staff reports. So staff report is item 14.1, and Councillor Andrews, I believe you've already shared that you have a conflict. Very good. If you could, we'll miss you while you're gone. And we'll just wait for Councillor Andrews to leave the room. Okay, and that report is that CPS 2023-084 2023 community grants update be received, and the council approved the distribution of 2023 community grant budgeted funds to the Dufferin County Cultural Resource Center for $10,000 from one-time grants. Council, do we want to make a motion to receive this item, or would you like to speak to it? How would you like to go? Councillor McIntosh? You'd like to speak to it. Okay, very good, sir.
Thank you. I've been thinking long and hard about this. I know the paperwork wasn't done quite correct. This group puts on a heck of a display, heck of a show. I think 10,000 is a lot to ask for. I would make a motion, put forward 5,000 out of this. That would be my recommendation, but again, it's up to council. But I would hate to see this. You know, I'm sure they have deposits and stuff that they have to put down for the upcoming season, and you know, or they could wait till the next round of grants. But again, maybe they need the money now. I'm not sure, but I don't want to lose this. This is a great cultural event for Orangeville. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Councillor McIntosh. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. I had a question for the treasurer. Is the DCCRC already in receipt of a community grant?
No, they are not.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Sherwood.
And yes, through you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. I too struggle with this because typically I like to approve grants for the years that I know they're going to be used. Unless there's circumstances where they need to secure a performer and maybe need some funds for the, to secure them for the next year. So I'm struggling with $10,000. I don't think I can support that tonight. I think that they need to come back and perhaps ask for it in the year that they're looking for. And I'm along the lines as my colleague, Councillor McIntosh is like, it's unfortunate that Debbie's left because I wanted to ask if they did need to secure deposits for performers, then I probably would have supported the 5,000. But at this time, I think my position is come back for the full ask in 2024.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll weigh in as well, and then I know you've got a motion on the floor, and we'll see if there's a seconder for that. Candidly, again, it's so difficult to criticize a charitable organization, and I don't want to do that. However, I'm disappointed that someone would come without a business plan and without the backup to request $10,000. Just simply can't, in our positions, what we're charged with in terms of financial acumen and looking after the community, approve such a thing. So again, I mean, nothing to this great organization, but my response would be nothing. So I would align with you, and it doesn't mean that they would be out. This event is in 2024. Come back, be prepared. It's going to go through a new process, and they can apply at that time. And I wonder, Mr. Kelly, is it a good time to ask you a little bit about that process, or do you want to do that, sir, or no? Yes?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. Early in my arrival with the town, there was discussions on this community grants program and some of the intricacies of it, and the opportunity to partner with another organization to maybe administer the program on our behalf through the direction of our CAO, staff from finance. We're in contact with a third party, the same third party that's used at the county level to administer the community grant program. Through conversations with their executive director, it was made clear that there is an opportunity for us to partner with them, similar to our requirement to receive approval from this council to partner with them. Their executive director also needs to receive approval from her leadership group to partner with us. We're in the process of getting those approvals from the third party, which I can name as Headwaters Communities in Action. When those approvals are in place on their end, we would bring an agreement forward with this council saying this is how the program would work going forward. We're optimistic that could come forward at our very first meeting in January, which would allow the program here to launch in early February at the latest. So when you're speaking to timelines and applying for funding for next year, we would be launching our program in early February, hopefully through the third party.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kelly. And just as a thought, Mayor Post and I sit up. That's the process that's used in action, and been very impressed. Council, this brings us back to Councillor McIntosh has a motion on the floor, and that is, sir, that you the Dufferin County Cultural Resource Circle for this year. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconder. For sure. What did you want to make?
Sure. So my motion would be for them to apply for the funds that they need in 2024 during that time period of the grant application process.
Is there a seconder for that? Okay, Councillor Prendergast. Okay, very good. Thank you. I would just like to add to that if I could, and it's not just maybe it's an add-on. I'm sure they're playing this back at home, and it's just my encouragement to them would be is to come prepared with the background and the business case for why they're coming when they come in 2024. And I hope they will come in 2024, and they should feel encouraged and that they have a motivated council to help them. But hopefully it'll be a little bit more prepared. Councillor Prendergast, did you want to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to give a reason as to why I
Yes, please.
decided the way I did. Just that I do believe that $10,000 is a very big ask. And, National Indigenous Peoples Day, it's a very important day. And I want to see that honored and celebrated here in Orangeville. But we also have to be very cognizant of taxpayers' money. And $10,000 is a lot. We didn't see a business plan, any kind of quotes with anticipated costs. And I'd just like to make sure that the money is managed appropriately. And we do look forward to celebrating with the DCCRC next June.
That's excellent. Thank you. Sentiment. Yes,
Deputy,
Councillor Sherwood.
could I speak on this again as well? I want to reiterate my position. I'm in no way saying that I'm not supportive of this fund. Indigenous Day is very, very, very significant. And yes, we do have to do something. And the fact that they want to put on an event, it's critical that we continue towards this truth and reconciliation. And that it's very critical that we also recognize that and do put on something. And as I reiterated to Debbie when she was here, I saw them go from having 6 people, to it growing. So Deb, if you're out there, I'm going to be supporting you for funds, but I would like to see that come in 2024 and with some good plans as to where that money is going to go.
Very good. Sounds like we're all aligned. So we have a mover and a seconder. All in favor of this motion? Yes. Okay, that's very good. It's unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone. And if we could pause and ask Councillor Andrews to come back in. Do I? Okay. Welcome back, Councillor Andrews. Okay, so this is item 4.2. This is the Out of the Cold program 2023-2024 season, CMS-2023-048. Recommendations that the report CMS 2023-048 Out of the Cold program 2023-2024 season be received, and the staff be authorized to work with community partners to designate one nonprofit organization to host the Out of the Cold program for the 2023-2024 season, and then an upset limit of $30,000 to fund 50% of the operating costs of the Out of the Cold program 2023-2024 season be funded through the 2024 Community Grant Program, and that council pass a bylaw authorizing the mayor and the clerk to sign the Out of the Cold service agreement on behalf of the corporation of the town of Orangeville. Councillors, would anyone like to make the motion? Councillor Andrews, do I have a seconder for this? No. Councillor Prendergast, comments or questions, council? Anyone would like to speak to this? Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. It's kind of unusual, I guess. We're giving money, but we have no place to basically have this. I just wanted to staff, are we close to finding a place or are we not close?
Ms. Savage, did you want to speak to this? I understand you're leading the cause.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. To you, Councillor McIntosh. We are close. We are working closely with Councillor Andrews, Mayor Post, in conversations with the county. We've spoken with a couple of nonprofit organizations that are unable to provide the service at this point, but we are speaking with the Lighthouse Uptown Church, and we do have a site visit planned for December 4th to see if the space is a viable space to run the Out of the Cold program. And I agree, it's a bit unusual. It's like confirming an operating budget and then allowing staff to go and pick the best provider. It is the time is of the essence, and that's why we are going about the process this way.
Very much, Ms. Savage. Any further questions? Yes, Councillor Andrews.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Taylor. As the chair of the Homelessness Task Force, this is a challenging issue, and I know that Councillor Sherwood also has been a very strong advocate, even in our previous year, in dealing with this. And timing is of the essence, as Ms. Savage is aware of this. We now have, of course, the snow that is now falling even as I speak outside. And I think that what we have to do is work in collaboration with a variety of different stakeholders, in this case led by Ms. Savage and the mayor herself, I think we're going to be in a good spot, and hopefully we have some answers very, very soon.
Thank you very much, Councillor Andrews. Any further? Yes, Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, through you, Deputy Mayor. Again, time of is of the essence. We are in those winter conditions. As you mentioned, Councillor Andrews, this has been a very passionate issue of mine, and I know that it's very important that we, get a service provider and an agreement in place. So am I under the assumption by us approving this evening that you won't have to come back for us to approve the service provider? We've left it in your capable hands and that we can open the door when you're game ready?
That is correct, Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you. That's encouraging.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Kelly.
Yeah, sorry, through you, Deputy Mayor Taylor, just in doing this, I want to confirm it would result in a shift between what's in the one-time funding and the multi-year funding. It's not within the motion, but just making sure council's aware we would have to do that. So the budget that's being brought forward would just have a shift in those amounts with the detail of the budget. I just wanted to make sure council's aware.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll go Councillor Prendergast and then Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to affirm my support of the Out of the Cold program, and just that, I'm really grateful that town staff is working to do what they can to make sure this is up and running before the temperatures drop low. And those without homes are still residents of Orangeville. And, I'm really proud that we are making sure that everyone, all vulnerable people in town are going to be protected this winter season.
Thank you very much, Councillor Prendergast. Councillor Sherwood.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Mr. Kelly. So in clarification, I know that we approved in the budget $30,000 and we had put it in the reoccurring, and then I believe we billed 11,000 or 12,000 that came out of the one time. So am I clear that if we get a provider up and running, that we will allocate whatever we pay them for December out of that 30,000 that we allocated for 2023, and that we'll be paying January on out of the 2024 budget 30,000 allocation?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. So just to confirm, what we would be looking at is adjusting within the 2024 program that we're moving funds over to the multi-year, because what you'd previously approved was $11,000 under the one time. The $30,000 allocation under the multi-year isn't on record as being approved anywhere. It might have been mentioned at one point in time, but we don't have record of that being approved. So what I'm saying is, if it does become part of the recurring at 30,000, we would need to shift to have enough money in the recurring program, which would reduce the one time, if that makes sense.
Councillor Sherwood, all good? Okay, very good. Council's good. If I may, and CAO Smith, just a thought for you, and we did talk about this prior, so I don't think I'm surprising you. My commentary is, why are we doing this at the town of Orangeville? To me, this is a county program. We continue to have our staff work on items that I think should be handled by the upper tier. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Through you, and thank you for the question. And as you said, we have spoken about this previously, and I would concur with you. We should continue to make our efforts to support the county in their efforts rather than being the driver. I know our staff are working collaboratively with the county, so there is a close working relationship there. But over time, we should be pushing it up and uploading it more. Wherever we can, to make sure that the service provision is occurring in Orangeville, because these are residents of Orangeville, but provided the service by the most appropriate service provider, which in this case would be the county.
I appreciate your answer, and it's something that we should talk about with more runway so that we can implement that. And if there's anything that Mayor Post and I can do in our position, we should approach it. It's a frustrating item to me that's ongoing. So anyway, that has nothing to do with how benevolent this cause is as well, but I just wanted to make that point. So we're all in agreement here. Motion to approve this item. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. And then we move on to 14.3, and 14.3 is the 2024 municipal budget, CPS 2023-089. And the recommendation is that the report CPS 2023-089, 2024 municipal budget be received. And Councillor Andrews, Councillor Pendergrast is seconding that. All in favor of this motion? Thank you, everyone. I didn't ask for comments. Specifically because we've agreed that we would push that to next week. So thank you for that. Item 15, any notice of motion prior to meeting? There's none. Is there any notice of motion at meeting from council? No, seeing none. Okay, we're on to item 17, which is announcements. Anyone from council have an announcement? I'm going to go to this end because I feel, yeah, I'm going to go down here if I could. So Councillor Sherwood, would you like to lead us off?
Yes, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. First of all, I wanted to put a plug for our 2024 Heritage calendar. It's now available. Our committee worked really hard on it, and we are featuring down memory lanes this year. You could get them at any of our facilities, or if you want to reach out to me, I can personally deliver one to you if you're unable to get to any of our facilities. And I also wanted to put a shout out for the upcoming Theatre Orangeville performance of Cinderella. I believe it runs December 1st to December 23rd. Lots of fun will be had by all. It is okay for children, but maybe a little bit more geared towards adults. Not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just it's a pantomime, and so maybe that captive audience would be more for the adults. That's it.
Very good. Councillor Andrews, you were up next.
Yes, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Taylor. Earlier this evening, as I sit as the town's representative on council on the SHIP, which is the Supportive Housing and Province Committee for 236 First Avenue, or First Street, I should say. The project is moving along, and if you've had the opportunity from the community to drive by, you will see that there is a lot of progress. Even at this time of the year, they will be completing some of the exterior tasks that are required. The targeted move-in date is probably, by the looks of things, late January, early February 2024. Some encouraging news as we were talking about the Out of Cold program. We're also talking about the process of affordable housing, and this is just one of those continuums that is being addressed. And what is also intriguing, very quickly, we had a representative from their counseling side, which also talks about how they will be supporting the residents on site too as well. So a very interesting model that this organization is bringing to our community, and very pleased with the leadership and what was presented earlier this evening.
That's excellent. Thank you very much, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Prendergast?
Thank you. I just wanted to invite everyone to Mayor Post Town Hall this Wednesday night. Doors open at 6 at Tony Rose in the upstairs banquet. Presentations start at 6:30. I'm going to be talking about the results of the private tree survey or the tree survey that the town recently conducted. And in addition to talking about other sustainable Orangeville initiatives, Councillor Sherwood's going to be there talking about heritage. Should be a great time. So if you're not doing anything on Wednesday night, come on out to Tony Rose.
Very good. Thank you very much, Councillor Prendergast. And just as a thought on that, I always think it's interesting. People think that why isn't all of council there? And it's because we're not allowed to be. It's not a council meeting and we can't have all of us in the same room together. So therefore only a certain portion can be there, and it's less than quorum. So only three can go. I would love to go, but unfortunately I'm not allowed to, so I won't. My one lone announcement is Christmas in the Park at KC Gardens. The lights go on at 7 o'clock on this Friday. And I would encourage everyone to be there a little bit early, enjoy the night. It's absolutely magical. The kids love it. And the Optimists have worked super hard in conjunction with the town to make this a wonderful community event. So please go and enjoy the lights. So that brings us to bylaws. We're good, no more announcements, right? That brings us to bylaws then, so that's great. So recommendations that the bylaws listed below be read 3 times and finally passed. So a bylaw to authorize entering into and execution of a fiber optic agreement extension with the Upper Grand School Board. 18.2 is a bylaw to appoint Michael Young and Vince Iozzo as the bylaw property standards officer, weed inspector for the town of Orangeville, and to repeal bylaw 054-2015. 18.3, a bylaw to authorize entering into an execution of an out of the cold service agreement with a local nonprofit or community organization. And 18.4, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the corporation of the town of Orangeville at its regular council meeting held on November 27, 2023. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Prendergast, Councillor Sherwood, any comments? No. All in favor? Yes, thank you, everyone. And a motion to adjourn. Councillor Andrews, Councillor Pendergrass, all in favor? Yes, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night. Mayor Post, we'll see you back next time. Bye, all.